right? If you're really interested in that subject, how do you develop a sincere desire to know the answer? Like, can you see you have to formulate the question for yourself, emotionally formulate the question, feel, okay, why do you want to know? So can you answer that question, why you want to know?
I guess I'm looking for like stuff like purpose. What is the reason?
Okay, so really it's a poor motive. Can you see why? It's a poor motive because I'm not sincerely wanting to know. I want to know for my own sake, which is a selfish desire to know. So you're hoping that the answer will provide you some significant motivation for your life in terms of your life's purpose. And that's not going to be the result of this answer. Does that make sense to you? Yep. So this is where we have to be sincere, right? We have to really find out, why is it I want to know that? Now, the reality is, maybe I shouldn't tell you the reality. You should ask God what the reality is first, probably. And then we'll talk about it a bit more about that one subject. But let's first just go through the process of asking, right? So who of you felt you were sincere and you really want to know? Can you see now it's like 5 of us who really want to know. And you can see why, can't you? Because a lot of times it's because we have these ulterior motives in our questions. And so what I did, if I noticed any ulterior motive, and particularly this is what I do now that I still carry some sin, which I didn't do in the first century, but what I wanted to know, I've got to be really honest about whether I'm really sincere about knowing or not. And the very first thing is I try to, am I sincere? Yes or no? You can be sincere about asking whether you're sincere. Does that make sense? And God can even tell you whether you're being sincere in the moment. Right? So the very first thing I would do if I felt, I'm a bit suspicious, whether I'm sincere or not, I would ask God whether I am sincere, and God would say, when you receive a yes from God, it's usually a confirming emotional response. When you receive no, it's like nothing. Just nothing. No, like you don't get anything. Because if God gave you a response, then you'd think yes. So there's nothing that comes from God. So when there's nothing coming from God, I know the answer's no. Does that make sense to you? If nothing's coming from God, I know there's 1 or 2 reasons why. One reason why is because of my development, or the other one is no. And I just mostly assume no and go from there.
It's something I've tried a lot, asking question, and I would at times receive answer, but some of these answers might mislead me as well. In nature, they were reasonable answer, but how can I know where they come from, and how can I know that they are for example, if I ask a question about emotional processing, I never really get the answer. Yeah, emotional processing is definitely gonna help you.
Yeah.
The teaching you follow from AJ in Australia is valid.
Yeah.
Actually, some medium would not channel some okay spirit that can help people. They don't really agree specifically with emotional feeling.
Correct.
So sometimes I never really got a definite answer. Is it the right way I'm doing by following this emotional path?
Can I suggest why? Because you don't want to do emotional processing.
Yeah.
You want it to be easier than that. And this is a problem many of you face, is that when it comes to your emotions, you would rather there be a simpler explanation. You would rather skip over the hard yards, is what most people want. See, this is a trouble we have with a lot of people. They hear divine truth, they're attracted to the sort of truth of it, except for the emotional work. Do you know what I mean? It's like everything else sounds reasonable, logical, but this emotional work, masochistic and sadistic really, is the general feeling that most of society even has. And so what we end up doing is we hear we need to do the work, but we don't want to hear it, so we go, there must be another explanation. So we go seeking for more explanations, which is what actually you've done. You've gone, You know, let's go to a medium and see what they say. Let's find another spirit, see what they say. Oh, there's a whole bunch of spirits who say you don't need to do it. So should I follow them? And, you know, and there are a whole bunch of spirits in the spirit world who are terrified of doing it. There are. And they will come to you and you don't have to do it because they want to feel they don't have to do it either. And so they'll tell you these things. And obviously none of this is coming from God. If what I'm sharing with you is from God, then obviously it's contrary. And if it was from God, it wouldn't be contrary. So God has fixed laws, fixed principles. God is consistent. So anything contrary, there must be one thing wrong with one or the other or both, right? And that's something you have to determine. But this is where sincerity comes down. We have to see our motive for the way or what we're asking. And for many of you currently, or up until now, your motive has to be to skip over the things that are hard. It's a very common human motive. And the reality on earth is that most of us want to do it. And the more comfortable a life we've had on earth, the more we want to do it. Right? And the more, by the way, you've been mummied by your mother, the more you want to do it. The more you want there to be an easy answer. Right? If you think about it, in a logical sense though, if I'm carrying around, and this is something I worked out too, is that God's answers are in harmony with logic. If I am carrying around in myself somewhere, I don't know whether I've got a soul or not at this stage, but let's say in myself I can feel I've got anger, I've got resistance, I've got, sadness, I've got these different emotions. And if I'm carrying them around within myself, can you see what's going to let them leave? What's going to get them to leave me? And that's a very fundamental question I need to ask, because if I don't ask that question, I'll go, oh, let's try this method and let's try that method. And to be honest, we get thousands of emails a year on all the methods I should be using to deal with my emotions. Fair income. Like, people tell me, you're crazy doing what you're doing. You don't have to do that. You need to do this thing. This thing works. And then they say this thing works and this thing works and this thing works and this thing. Some of them I actually did try. And none of them worked. But and also none of them are permanent. Like, you would become reliant on people and all sorts of things. So after a while I realised I've just got to stop listening to all this and just listen to God. What does God want me to do? And once I just did that, it's like, this is what he wants to do. This is the thing that's going to work. And then I've done it sincerely with desire, and it works. So I am a significantly different person than I was when I started this process, because it works, not for any other reason. And the more I got told from God, this is my way, and God has told me this is his way. This is the way to clear sin, right? Once I know that, and I was told that in the first century, but I didn't have any sin to clear, so it wasn't very significant to me. In this century, I've had a lot of sin to clear, so it's been really significant to me to understand it and know that. And once I've known that and can feel that and tried it and it works, I realise, yeah, it works every time I'm sincere. It works every time. Now, there are a whole bunch of sixth-sphere spirits who are very well developed who don't agree. I've had communication with them for nearly 2,000 years about their disagreement. And they are sharing with people on earth that you don't need to do it. They are. And they're not in a bad condition in the sense that they're in the sixth sphere. They're in the condition of perfect natural love, so not in a bad condition. But none of them are at one with God. Not a single one. Every person who's ever become at one with God has to do what I'm telling you to do. Right? Now, you might not trust that at this point, and that's fine. I got no problem with that.
I do. Some I've heard also that your way one time was the fast way, I guess. So yeah, it makes sense actually. So.
Sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
I mean, one time I think I've heard that your way was the fast way.
The fast way.
Yeah.
But a few weeks later, maybe another advice was more general advice and was not saying to me, yeah, do this. So.
That's right. Because, see, you've got to remember that most people who are spirits who might come and share information with you, a lot of them have their own agendas. And I don't have an agenda with you. I'm just telling you, this is what God has got me to do. I've had to do it. You're going to have to do it. Everybody I know had to do it in order to reach the celestial kingdom. Everybody I know had to do it. So there is no other way. In fact, in the first century, I said the way the entering into the gate of heaven, the celestial heavens, was narrow. It's a narrow way leading to life, but narrow way. God defines this is the way. Just this little way you go, that has to be the way. And I also said in the first century that there's this broad way which leads to everything else. In the Bible, they now change that interpretation, say the broad way leads to destruction, which is not what I said. But it is this broad way, this broad road, which the average person on earth will take because it's the way of compensation. It works until the sixth sphere, and lots of people take that. And so I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying why do that? When you can have a relationship with God and progress infinitely, why would you choose to not have a relationship with God and be stagnant in the sixth sphere eventually? Now, many of you at the moment don't understand the significance of what it means to be stagnant in the sixth sphere because you've never visited the celestial heavens. Right? And so you don't understand the significance of the difference. But trust me, it's so wide as to be almost two completely different places where one is full of bliss and the other one is very limited. And so, but again, it's something you can experiment with and try. So the problem for many, though, is when it comes to asking questions about your emotional work, most of the time we're asking them because we don't want to do it. And it is hard. So I'm not suggesting emotional work is easy. It is hard. It does require diligence and it does require trust in God, in God's way. It does require that, which I think is actually good. but some people don't, obviously. But if you can just bear in mind that if you get a wide variety of answers, which is really the principle of your question, if you get a wide variety of answers, then obviously more investigation is required. More investigation as to the source of those answers, where they come from, and also more investigation is required into what is your motive for asking the question in the first place. Because remember, every time you have a sincere desire and the question is directed at God specifically, God will respond with a clear answer. So if I get a wide variety of answers and they're all different, then it either means my desire was not sincere for whatever reason, and in the case of emotions, it's probably because I don't want to feel them, or I have not yet got enough desire to know what the answer will be. Because the thing with answers is this. Answers lead to other questions, but also answers lead to decisions, don't they? And many of us don't want to make decisions. Many of us want to keep our life as it is. Many of us don't want to make major changes. We don't want to know the truth necessarily. We think we do, but we're unwilling to make a choice once we know it. Right? And which would also indicate a lack of sincerity before we asked. So for example, if I ask a question of God and God gives me the answer, and let's say I am actually sincere and God gives me the answer, the sincerity, my true sincerity, the depth of it, is going to be proven by my action I take afterwards, isn't it?
Yeah.
If my action says, right, I'm going to trust that and just see where that takes me, versus my action says, but I don't want to do it, then obviously the I don't want to do it meant that maybe my question wasn't as sincere as I thought. And what was my motive for knowing, or my motive for trying to get the answer? My motive was to get my answer. So it's funny, I don't know if you've watched a lot of our videos, but you'll see some people ask the same questions over and over and over again. You know, there's one person in particular I can think of, but there's many that have done this. And every new seminar, I do a new seminar, and they put up their hand and I ask them, and they ask the same question they asked last time. Why does a person do that when I've already given them an answer? It's because they don't want that answer. They want another answer. Surely there's another answer. You know what I mean? And when it comes to emotions, because pain is associated with emotion, and a lot of our emotions are painful when we're in a state of sin, we want other answers. We want someone to say, it's not that bad, it's not going to be hard, it's not going to be difficult, it should be easy, and all this kind of stuff. And I sort of now feel like, why should it be easy? Like, for many of us on earth, our life's an absolute, total, horrifying mess. Why do you think it's going to be easy tidying it up? It's like you go into a house, let's say you go into a house, and whoever lived there before was tidy as. You can walk in that house and you can sleep on the bed and with confidence, can't you? You can sleep on the bed and you can, go to the shower and you're not going to be covered in worms and, cockroaches and everything while you're having a shower or anything. You turn on the water, it's nice clean water coming out, and it's hot and cold and beautiful, right? If a person's looked after the place, it's great. But with our life, the majority of us hasn't even known how to look after our life. And so our life's a bit of a mess. And so it's like walking into a dirty house where you can't really sleep anywhere and you're going to have to tidy things up in your life. Now, do you think that if you had your life untidy for 20 years or 30 years or 50 years, that it's going to be easy? Nobody would think, I bought this rundown ruin of the house and tomorrow I'll just go trump and it's a brand new spanking, like high, 3-story mansion. Nobody's going to think that way. And yet this is the way we think with our soul. We think we can go through all these negative processes, right, in our course of our life and engage a lot of sin. And a lot of it is mistaken, I know, but we still engaged it. And we were taught to engage it and everything. And we think that after all that mess has happened, that it's going to require just a little tiny 1 month or a few days of sitting down with somebody, some counsellor or some person who waves his hand over my head or over my chest or, some kind of Reiki or whatever. And it's going to instantly cure me from that entire career of sin. Or that you have some Messiah come along and he'll take on all your sin for you. Well, that's the Christian belief, isn't it? Some Messiah will come along and he'll take away all your sin and then, his blood pays for all your sin. And so, but most of us don't realise it, but we have an extension of that concept because we want simple solutions. But we've got very complicated sins. We've made them complicated through our life. They're going to take some sincerity, desire and time, particularly time to cure. Yeah. And you need to bear that in mind. So these people who suggest to you that there's a simple answer to some of your problems, well, some of them might be quite simple if they're minor problems, but if they're major problems, there's going to be some pretty hard emotions to feel. And I'm not glossing over that with you. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, oh no, there's these other ways that are a lot easier. I know there isn't. Yeah. I know there's no other way. So that's what I'd encourage you to consider from a logical perspective. Who's being more honest with you? Somebody who says all of your problems that you've had all your life are going to disappear in an instant, or you don't even have to worry about them. Or someone who's saying, no, you're going to have to worry about them and you're going to have to deal with them. Who's probably more honest with you?
It seems that many of these mediums, they just do the job until you start feeling. They say that the job is done. Basically, when you start feeling, you're not supposed to stay in the feeling.
Correct.
This is often what we hear. As soon as you have the intellectual connection of the error,
yep,
just a teeny bit of feeling, and then you're not supposed to stay in the feeling. This is what often comes.
Have you done that? Did it work?
Me, I tried your way actually. So, I thought I was trying, but I have heard many people saying this, and like you said, we can only access quite not very advanced spirits. So
they're telling you their truth, and I'm telling you God's truth.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's
we
why
can
it's
access the spirit you can access. We will more access spirit that are more mind-driven.
Yeah.
So they will not say to us, yeah, that's the emotional way.
That's right. They're on the natural path. They're on the mind, they're trying to use their mind to progress. They've been doing that for centuries, many of them, and they have made some progress. None of them above the 6th sphere. But they have made some progress, and so they're very attached. The spirits are very attached to you just doing it their way. And they think you do it that way, it's going to be good for you. But none of them have got a relationship with God. Yep. So, and that should also be an interesting key. But it's hard to tell because a lot of those spirits will say, I've got a relationship with God. And then when you ask them, well, define God, they say, well, I'm a part of God.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, yeah, okay. Now I know.
Just from this experiment of asking a question.
Yep.
In our condition, like on this earth, we
Yeah.
have tendency to only get the information from this squire a bit better than us, but low spirit, as we qualify them, and that's so it's a bit difficult to make the difference between a reasonable leading general stuff they tell us and what God would say. It's a bit difficult to make the difference because it seems reasonable in what they say. They
Yeah.
often give
Well, it
quite a lot of
seems
advice.
reasonable to your mind,
Yeah.
doesn't it? But see, when I feel about it, it's not reasonable to my soul. It seems reasonable to your mind. And this is a trouble with your mind assessing, is that you will often be presented with information that seems reasonable, but it is incomplete and does not include your soul, your emotional self. So there's many spirits who believe their soul is their spirit body. So they believe when you say the word soul, they're hearing spirit body, right? So they don't know about the soul yet even. They don't even know what's in their own soul yet even. And they don't even know that the process they went through was actually a process in harmony with the law of compensation that they had to engage emotionally, but it took them hundreds of years to do it because they were so slow dealing with every emotion.
I agree.
Yeah. And so they don't understand these things. And so that's what they're going to share with you. So the problem with receiving information from spirits oftentimes is the information is very incomplete. You know, it's based on their personal experience rather than what is God's absolute truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe we can illustrate that, maybe. But, maybe.
Yeah.
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 Because
Yes.
we have a spirit who would like to...
There's two spirits actually.
two spirits.
Well, it's a whole. There's so many spirits, but anyway.
Yeah, we have some spirits who would like to talk to you about their experience. So you up to doing it?
Yeah, but we don't have much time, and they've got a lot to say. So.
Well, we'll see how we go. And
don't-
hopefully also we get the chance to answer some ask them some questions, right? So let's